Hello, it's the Friday Talkie. I'm going to do something different this week, and this being a retro channel, what I normally do is look at the past and the technology of the past and gaming of the past. What I'm going to do today is actually look to the future and make a prediction of sorts. But to do that, I'm going to look at the past. Now, I'm an old git, as you know, 42 at the moment. So I'm one of the generation who remembers what the world was like without computers. Never mind without computer games, without home computers. There were computers in the world. They were big corporate things that filled a whole room. I have in fact seen a reproduction of the Colossus, which was built in World War II. But I'm not that old, so I don't remember that era, but I do remember the time before there were computers in the home. And life then was very, very different, to be honest. There were no home computers, as I said, no mobile phones. But not just that, most homes didn't have a landline. There were perhaps 2 people down my street who had a telephone. And if you wanted to make a call, you had to go to a call box. Probably half of families didn't have a car. You wanted to go somewhere, you took a bus. Contact with family, friends, whatever, who didn't live in the same town as you, you had to send a letter. And if they lived, I mean, you had you could have pen pals in other countries, and so communication, a conversation could take weeks. You know, you had to use airmail or worse, you know, surface mail. Yeah, so everything was slow, and things were built solidly. Things were chunky and clunky and, well, plastic. Things made of plastic were looked at as cheap and nasty. If it wasn't made of metal, it was just rubbish. But then things rusted, cars in particular. And I mean, the view of the future then, I could not, in the 70s, I could not look to the future and imagine it as it is now. My vision of the future then was Star Trek. And that was it. That was the only thing I imagined. Big talking computers and spaceships. Okay. So, moving on to the 80s. And we started getting home computers. And, well, the 80s turned out to be nothing like Star Trek. I remember when, in the 70s, I said to my mother, when I grow up, I want to have a computer. And my mother saying, no, only really big companies will ever afford computers because they're massive and expensive. And I was really disappointed. And then I got a ZX81, and I always remembered my mother saying that, and me thinking, I've got a computer, you didn't know what you were talking about. It didn't do much. Had 1K. I managed to put a 16K RAM pack on it, and it suffered chronic memory wobble all the time, which eventually killed it. But you know, it was a computer. It was a real computer, and I was thrilled. And you could, at that time, just start to imagine the world where computers were in every home. You just started to get a feel for the way the world was going. Just. And then in the 90s, computers were getting more impressive, and then we started getting bulletin boards. I'm not sure exactly when the first bulletin board started, but that was when I started encountering bulletin boards. In fact, I did them in the 80s because there was Prestel on the Spectrum, but my experience started in the 90s, and this was just like the first hint really of an online world. And I remember having read Neuromancer by, what's his name? Can't bleed and remember. William Gibson, and thinking, I want to live in that world. And here was just this first hint of what he'd been talking about. And I was excited. So then you got into the thousands, the 2000s, the noughties as they call them, which I always found incredibly lame. And the internet was conquering all. You know, once upon a time, if you wanted to know something, if you had a thought in your head like, what's that bug called? Is it dangerous? Should I be wary of it? You had to go to the library and dig out all the books on insects and natural whatever, you know, your nature books and stuff, and look for it and hope you could find it. And it could take you a whole afternoon to find out if that bug was dangerous. And I did this. There was an occasion, there was a particularly weird spider that turned out to be a European wasp spider. How it got over here, I don't know. But anyway, so, you know, you had to hunt for information in the library, or just give up and know that you were never going to know. What was that thing? How many blahs make a blah? Who was that song by? You can only think of 3 words and the 2 notes, and what the hell was it? And then the internet came along and you could just Google everything, and you no longer had to wonder about stuff, which was fantastic. Arguments could be solved in minutes or seconds, where once upon a time you would have been arguing, just, you know, 2 people adamant black is white or whatever, and no way of checking, and that was it, problem solved. And then we got social networking. So while the internet was making it possible to find out information, social networking made it possible to find people, and it brings together old friends, new friends. If you want to find someone, you look on Facebook or Friends Reunited or any number of LinkedIn or whatever, any number of social networks, and you can find pretty much everyone you want to. There are only maybe 2 people in the world who I want to find who I can't. Everyone else, you know, tap the keyboard, there they are. Send them an email. Send them a message. You don't even need email anymore. And this also brings in the question of privacy, because I mean, Facebook's reputation for privacy is very questionable. Lots of people with lots of personal information on there, and just how private is it? Don't really know. And it starts creeping in the noughties, in the 2000s, whatever you want to call it, the question of privacy. Then we get into the 10s. We're talking now, present day, 2010, 11, 12. We haven't got to 12 yet. I'm jumping the gun. But you know, now, current time, language translation is getting reliable. Speech recognition is call Steve. Speech recognition works, and you've got voice synthesis. So we have our Star Trek talking computers in our pocket. Language translation with speech recognition, with speech synthesis in our pocket. We have reasonably fast mobile internet in our pocket. And here is the thing, this is the exciting thing. In our pocket we have augmented reality. There will be quite a few people who are familiar with this in terms of what you get on your 3DS. You know, the thing where you point the camera around and you've got spaceships flying around and you shoot them, or you've got your little monsters crawling up out of the table and weird crap like that. That's augmented reality, but there is another side to it. Hook augmented reality into the internet. And I'm going to show you something now. I videoed this last night. The quality is not what I would have liked because the light was piss poor, but I couldn't do it in broad daylight because the camera couldn't see the screen. But anyway, here, take a look. This is augmented reality, just a little bit of what it can do on the iPhone. Right then, here we are at Worksop Priory Church, looking at the church, and with the augmented reality view, we'll just bung the iPhone in front of the camera.
zoom this in, well, try and focus. There we go. And it gives you all kinds of information that I can't really work out from here. But that's the one on the church. But we can pan around and it will give us all kinds of information on whatever is around us, depending on the distance, and you can set it for distance. Which is really cool. Can't read it. Awesome. Yeah. So wherever you go, so long as you've got a signal, you can, if you adjust it for distance, you can just have it tell you whatever the thing is that you're looking at, which is absolutely brilliant. So the other great thing you can do is tagging, whereby you, if I can work out how to do it, you can leave a tag, and anyone running this software will see my tag if they're walking through this area. I've lost my own tag now. There it is. No, and I've lost it again. Where's it gone? There it is. Of course, it being dark, you can't see the thing. But yes, anyone who's using this software walking through here will see my tag. They can tap on it, zoom in, and it will say Steve Benway, retrogamingcollector.com. Shame about the lack of light. But yes, I don't know how long that will stay. I suppose it depends on the settings. It seems to follow you around. But this hooks into Twitter and Facebook and all kinds of stuff, and you can leave photos, tweets, just little bobbing messages like this, and it's tied into the location through GPS, and you can leave all kinds of messages just floating around in real space. But of course the only people who can see them are the ones using this app on the iPhone. So you can have augmented reality giving you directions to places, giving you information about everything that is around you, allowing you to tag places. How long before you can tag people? Here's a thought, right? That is now. That is where we're at now. Let's step into the future. First of all, we've got to make an assumption. What I'm going to call an in your eyes display. I know they've got these like the military things where you've got a funny little lens thing sitting in front of your eyes there, and you can get some kind of an image in front of your eyes. So we need something like that. Whether it would be like that or something shining directly into your eyes, don't know. But imagine a display that you can see as you walk around. Basically, you can see the world around you normally, but you're getting a head-up display in your eyes. Technically, probably possible sometime in the not too distant future. I'm not going to speculate on how, but it's probably possible. So take that and hook it into the kind of augmented reality that is technically already possible on the iPhone. Hook it into social networking. Hook it into supermarket prices. You can already, with the a Tesco app, it will guide you to a Tesco, and then in that Tesco it will tell you what aisle to go to find the product that you want. Now imagine that with a head-up display. It's taken you to Tesco, it's taken you to the aisle, you walk to the product, you hold it up, here's your barcode. There are barcode apps in there already that will tell you the price. And hey presto, you can have a price of an object that you're holding just pop up in your field of vision. With speech recognition, you can
ask for information on anything instantly. Whatever you want to know, bam, there it is, in front of you. Maybe it's in text, maybe it's video, maybe it's audio, who knows? You can have the lot right there. Everything's connected. Now, the tagging thing is fascinating because, okay, tagging places is easy because you can leave, like I did in that piece of video, I left a big orange blob floating in midair with my name and URL on it, and anyone using that program can go along and see it there. It's still there. It's going to be there for, I don't know, 3 months. And that's easy because it's set on on GPS coordinates. But what about tagging people? This is where the whole privacy thing could get really, really dicey, because imagine you've got everything is all tied together into this system. Say you have a universal ID. Maybe it becomes a requirement by law. Instead of having an ID card, you're hooked into this network. Universal ID, it has got your cash. You've got a cashless system. You pay for everything through your whatever little box you've got. It has got your medical records. It's got your criminal record. It's got your employment record. If they do it right, only the people who are authorized can see these things. But imagine that you walk into your doctor to see your doctor, or a hospital or whatever, and straight away they just in the doctor's head-up display, he can look at you and up comes your medical record right in front of his eyes. You can't see it, but he can see it. Police station, whatever, there's your criminal record, right? Or if they stop you in the street, they can see your criminal record. But what about individuals tagging other individuals? Like how I left that tag in the park last night. Could you tag another person? This, I think, is where social networks would come in, because can you imagine if anyone could just tag anyone? You'd have people walking around with all kinds of funny neon signs floating above their head. Some good, some not so good. Could be some very derogatory, some completely slanderous, some really cool. I think there would have to be some kind of friend list thing, maybe. But, you know, it poses some very interesting privacy questions there. Thinking a bit about the present day, there are people now, I'm sure you know some, I certainly know some, who they're not on the internet. They're never going to be on the internet. My mother isn't on the internet. A computer's just whoosh, way over her head. She's never even going to turn one on. She's never even going to go near one. She will never be on the internet. My next door neighbour hadn't got a clue with computers. And these people are, well, blissfully unaware of what they're missing out on. But they are missing out on massive opportunities. The information that is available, the bargains you can find, job opportunities, communication, all, well, you know what's on the internet and you know what they're missing, and they really are missing a lot. So in this future, with the augmented reality wholly encompassing social network with everything on it, suppose we become completely dependent on it, and I can imagine how we would. We're pretty damn dependent on the internet and computing as it is now. We are going to be so dependent on this augmented reality, it will just become an everyday thing. Information on everything, everything you want to know about everything, right there in front of you. You've got to wonder, education, what will happen to that? But what about the people who don't opt in? You kind of will have to. If you want to get paid, you'll need to be on it, because everything will be cashless. So if you want a job, you've got to be on it. If you want a house, you've got to be on it. If you want to claim the dole, you've got to be on it. But there will be some people who aren't on it. Criminals. Have you ever played Battlefield 1943 or similar games? You've got big orange thing above your head and it's really easy to see a person and you can shoot at them because you can see them. And in the normal world, as we come to experience it in this augmented reality normal world, you'll have big signs all over everyone. You'll know when there's someone there even when it's dark. You wouldn't be able to see a criminal if it's dark, or it'd just be so much easier to be anonymous and be a little bit devious and naughty. But it is a fascinating possible future, and I believe absolutely technically possible. Communication would be revolutionized. I live in a town with a large Polish community, and with this speech recognition and speech synthesis and on-the-fly translation, can you imagine you could just, or I could just walk up to one of these Polish people, speak in English, and they would hear me in Polish, and they could reply in Polish and I could hear them in English. The technology is there already, and imagine it in a wearable form. Awesome. And it could just become so everyday. Everything you want to know about everything, right there, in front of you. Just head-up display, really. Head-up display to the world, wherever you are. We just need slightly more reliable mobile internet, slightly more powerful processors. I mean, really, that fits in my pocket. It will do most of what I'm talking about. All we need is the in-your-eyes display and integration, software integration. I kind of imagine there being different augmented reality networks, sort of subscription based or something, like here's your AOL and here's your, I don't know, other thing, you know, different service providers, and maybe eventually it would all become unified until you do have this universal ID or something. Brilliant. There is a downside, apart from the privacy aspect. Well, you know what's happened the last month. PlayStation Network. How upset and cut off and just plain pissed off have people been just because they couldn't play their multiplayer games? How disruptive has it been to a lot of people? Because a billion-dollar corporation who you think would be able to get it right had out-of-date servers, and they got hacked because they hadn't patched a known thing. You would think a billion-dollar bloody corporation could get a simple thing like that right, and they didn't, and it screwed up millions of people's gaming for a month. Okay, it's not a catastrophe by any means, but it's pretty pissy. So imagine you've got a whole world that's hooked into augmented reality and become as dependent on that as we are on the technology we have right now, internet. How many of you do your shopping on the internet and get everything delivered, or buy your tickets online, or just your life would be pretty buggered without it. Things would be very difficult. So you become as reliant on this augmented reality, and imagine if that goes down. It's like a generation down the line from now. No one knows how to read a map. No one knows how to use a telephone. Is there even a telephone anymore? How do you pay for your food? If shops still exist and everything is cashless, if your system's gone down and you go into that shop, there's no cash anymore. Life, it would become very... Go back to the 70s. I don't think we'd be capable. It's kind of a scary thought. It's like, I want it. I want this integration of absolutely everything, but my God, it's scary to be so reliant on something like that. And we're getting more reliant on technology as we go along, and just, I don't know, what if that reversal of the poles that scientists keep talking about happens, you know, the magnetic poles gets reversed and all our electronics stop working? It wouldn't have mattered too much in the 70s, but whoa, we'd be so screwed. I want it all, but it scares me. Okay, I'm not going to do my usual thing. I'm going to end it right there. That is my prediction. When's it going to happen? I think anywhere between the next 10 and 30 years. I think a generation down the line, that will be the world we live in if we haven't blown ourselves up or fried from global warming. That's the world we're heading towards. I want it. Gimme. But my God, I hope they've got some good backups. Thank you for watching.